Hey everybody, welcome to episode 126 of Tactical Crouch. Kickedtripod here, Yiska, Volamel, ready to go. We're already arguing in the pre-show. It might not be the most civil podcast. We're going to just start right here. We're going to argue on this show. It does not mean we don't like each other. It doesn't mean we hate each other. It doesn't mean that we don't want to be near each other. It just means that we really feel passionately about some things, and we're going to argue on the show today. So if I see one YouTube comment about how it's weird that we do a show together and we don't even like each other, I am going to paywall the out of that video. Every 3.5 minutes, you're getting 30-second unskippable ads. I swear to God, test me.
Do we need a picture of me crying for the thumbnail?
We might.
Do I need to
Monday's episode's thumbnail
video?
was one of the most disturbing things I think I've ever made.
I loved it. You took the image I had in my mind's eye and put it onto canvas.
Unbelievable.
And it was magnifique.
Unbelievable. Anyways, welcome to episode 126. Hope you have fun. Follow us on Twitter at tactical_crouch. If you want to support the show, a great way to do that, patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. We've got some great perks set up there. We've got some goals set up, and we've got a game night coming soon. It's probably going to be the last week of August, so you've got plenty of time to get in there if you want some game night time with us. Other than that, big thank you to our patron producers, Battlecrab Pin, Lotion, Charlie L, Audio Compass, Pork Chop Sammy, Contra67, Kuchikopi, Shara, Nathan, Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Refined Bean, Rex Zane, Roger B, Fabled Steven, Owen, Chris R34444, Yiska's holding me hostage, please send help. I'm under Yiska's desk, please send help. Yiska says, Fishers, fish. Thanks for supporting the show. Okay, let's get into the topics here. We're gonna get into topic number 1. The Washington Justice have signed Decay using the new 2020 roster rules update for kind of playoffs and setting things up for there. And the community is having a reaction to this one, I will say.
Oh, they are.
They are having a reaction.
A reaction is a very calm way to put it.
There's reactions. I've seen them in both ways. So it's just...
Oh, you found some of the legendary Justice fans that are like, yeah,
just playing the game, man. They're just playing the game. They didn't write the rules.
They didn't write the rules. That's very true.
So I don't even know the right way. So, anyways, let me frame it really quick. So we did get an update on the 2020 and 2021 roster rules, and we did get one of the update clauses that teams can now sign a replacement for any player who retires or becomes unavailable to play due to COVID-19 or due to travel restrictions there. So with that update going out, the Washington Justice have signed Decay. And Joe, maybe you're the best person to bring us this one. Why is this A, is this a great move, and B, is it controversial to you at all?
Oh, I think it's a fantastic move. I think this is the type of moves that the Justice needs to make if they're going to be competitive in this league. You know, there's been like a shift in the front office with the Justice, obviously, with towards the end of last year, if I remember correctly. And obviously the team going fully Korean. This is a piece that you're going to want to hold on to at least going into 2021. So it's a good move. Is it controversial? It's a little weird. It's not the team I expected to see when I woke up this morning signing Decay. I'll tell you that.
Oh, sorry.
Not the one I'd expect. But
you made Joe listen to a song for a brief second though, and that's
I mean, I don't mind like the drum roll, but long as it's not my hideous
Those are sick beats by me.
screechy voice.
My beats are sick.
It's a beautiful beat.
My beats WAP.
Just leave me.
That's not how you use
Nope. Nope. That's not it. That's not it.
Someone said I ruined it. John ruined it more.
Oh, man,
there we go.
I literally, so I showed Katie the song because believe it or not, I'm more in touch with pop culture sometimes than Katie. And Katie, so I go, Katie, listen to this song really quick. And Katie, like, no problem with those things, but like, I think abrupt language is just very surprising to her. So I play that song to her, and then she just grabs my arm and goes, "Oh God!" And she had that was her initial reaction to the song, and then it's been I can't tell if it's been playing all day or not, but there's been some songs bumping in the other room. So yeah. Anyways, wow, we dropped like 40 concurrent viewers after that joke. So. Pat the partner next month, maybe.
Deserved.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even know where we were anymore.
We were talking Decay. Is it weird? Yes. Controversial? I mean, they're playing by the rules that are just enforced right now.
Okay, so towards that specific team, like
sure.
Albert, friend of the show, just tweeted. Unreal respect for Decay. This has to be one of the most anyone in OWL has gotten paid to play 2 matches. An absolute getter. Now, I respect that you know sass in that message, but it's sadly not true because Unco and AKM exist on the Dallas Fuel in 2020. So I assume.
But what if he's getting paid that much?
Yeah, no, that's impossible.
That they just put the briefcase on the table, he opened it up, and it was just a blank check. Said, pay yourself, bro. Pay yourself. You got the coffers. Open them up. Do they really only have 2 games left?
I just love
they
how
really
everyone...
only have... I mean, so that assumes that they don't make it very far in playoffs. Yeah.
Right, in playoffs. Huh. Weird. All right.
Yeah, and... I mean, I love the attitude that the GMs bring towards that because everyone recognizes the situation that there is a top tier agent that's currently on the market and like he's too far away to really realistically grab unless you bring the big bag, and then everyone just gets one in on the Justice. But yeah, still very confused how that even came about and how that is possible. And I suppose there was some clarity put towards it, right? Should I go into my confusion?
Yeah, talk about Yiska's weekly confusion.
Okay, so we got the roster construction rules, and the roster construction rules mentioned that like for the remainder of the 2020 season, and as we continue to make plans for the 2020 postseason, we are making a change to roster rules for this season to ensure that teams can continue to compete as potential operational issues arise. For now, until the end of the 2020 Overwatch League season, if a team has a player retire, become unavailable for play due to COVID-19, or elect not to travel, that team may sign a free agent to replace the player. So, and then any such replacements,
I know what you're gonna say.
Signing must expire at the end of 2020, and those players will become free agents for the 2021 season. So those that say that's in order to secure Decay, that's not how it works, unless you count like that Decay warming up to the team culture or whatever it is, and getting insights there. And then it says, due to visa timelines and safety planning, free agents must meet one of the following criteria to compete in the playoffs under this provision. The free agent must have citizenship for a country in Asia. The free agent must have an existing visa to travel to countries in Asia. Okay. So now here's a slight implication as to what this rule is meant to do, which is to assure the competitive integrity of the playoffs once we send 4 teams to Asia, or rather 2 NA teams to Asia. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a Reddit comment from John Spector saying the following, and it's a meme, fair, but once again reinforcing that idea. We need to update our rules so there's a reasonable way for teams to be able to compete through playoffs if someone retires or cannot travel to Korea for the end of the playoffs. So the intention here is to either have someone retire or cannot travel to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. ESPN comes in and says, okay, the Justice can sign Decay because there is someone that cannot travel to Korea, which is Lulsic. He has no ability to get the visa.
Okay.
Fine. That like other teams have players outside, right? So they still have the 7-man rule. So there's no need.
Technically.
To my knowledge, and if that comes to be known, okay, fair enough. Lulsic is not retired at this point in time.
Oh.
There is, and if it is to assure that the competitive integrity of the grand finals that will happen, or not grand finals, but the top 4.
Top 4, yeah.
Why can presumably Decay play in the last 2 matches of the regular season for the Washington Justice when that has nothing to do with the 2020 postseason? As per framing of this article. How is that possible? And how does the Lulsic situation, without a retirement, without making travel even necessary for that to matter? You have decided that 7 players are completely fine to field, and that must then also be the case in the postseason. If you don't have 7 players in the postseason, due to issues that aren't COVID related, tough luck, my friends. You played your cards wrong and you deserve to be punished. We're not making extra rules. Actually, we are. Decay is known the Justice. Yep. There's no continuity here unless like Lulsic. No, actually, like Lulsic would have to retire at this point in order for this the outlined rules to it all make sense. Also, by the way, I don't actually have a problem with saying the transfer windows are open. Just make it consistent for everyone.
Yep.
It's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems very pick and choosy, but that's, I mean, without going completely all cynical, that's what happens when you can kind of like. And I want to give the league like as much leeway as possible because COVID is like weird and crazy, and you know it's a weird time to run a esports league. But yeah, as you kind of led into that, I kind of put 2 and 2 together, tying it with Lulsic being like, okay, well you have 7 active players, well at least you have a starting lineup to play throughout the NA half of the playoffs. You really shouldn't have him until you have to travel. If that's like the definition of the rule, that's what should be enforced. Doesn't sound like that's going to be enforced though, because why would you kind of make a play for such a big name free agent if that wasn't the case?
I feel like the contingency, like the loophole opening was just like so weirdly chosen, because there's the players to retire. That's a very hard thing to do.
You can't like force anybody to retire.
Right. That's a legal reality. It's binary. Either like a player is retired or isn't. Unavailable to play due to COVID-19. Now this is more open. Like it might be that they have the illness. It might be that they can't travel, or like there's infrastructural issue at their compound in Europe or whatever due to whatever it is, right? That opens up the discussion more. And then it's elect not to travel. Well, the last time I heard such a wishy-washy thing, it was when I helped 10 of my friends try to circumvent the military draft, writing for them that they're all pacifists and therefore cannot serve in the German military. I don't understand what's like these things are just. I mean, it is sort of like, yeah, I don't want to travel because it's too unsafe. That's a fair selection of things. But it feels like it's just like, Chipsa, yo, are you cuffing? Not really. Do you want to go to Korea? Yeah. Now you don't really do, right? I do, but not really. Here, like the idea there is just so wishy-washy, and obviously like opening up loopholes for all kinds of scenarios where it's like,
for sure.
I get why. I get that the spirit of the rule is a good thing.
Yeah.
I also think the spirit of the rule was not upheld in that transfer.
No. Not if the messaging is to be consistent, right? Now, and again, I feel like this is a stretch, but is there a world where somebody on the Justice that is on the starting roster that isn't named Lulshish is ill, and they do need another starting player?
So according to ESPN, that's not the reason.
Fair.
ESPN has said it is Lulsish. Now, that could be the case. If Stitch, like, the logical thing would be to say Stitch is not able to play right now.
Or is retiring,
in
or
which case,
what
it's fair.
Right.
And that's why, like, that is just something that could clear up my confusion. And
sure.
I would then say, yeah, fair. Like, they definitely need someone, right? Even someone said it in chat, like, it's not a necessity for Paris Eternal to have this. But, like, their claim, as far as I can tell, with Smacks, is bigger than Justice's claim of not being able to get Lulsish into the country 2 years after signing him or some stuff.
Yeah.
Like, come on. It's, I don't know.
It is like a weird messaging problem. That's what it sounds like. Your big hang up on it is that everything about the rule is being framed around playoffs, traveling. Well, you don't need to travel, so Decay shouldn't be here. Why is he here? If that's what the rule is for, why are you allowing somebody to abuse a loophole that you kind of overlook?
So how do you hold on? How do you rewrite this then? How do you change the criteria here to support teams in a way that upholds the spirit of the rule, but doesn't give a team like Justice the opportunity to improve their roster?
I mean, you kind of want to, I suppose. Like, I don't mind it, but I would rewrite the rule. Teams may now sign as many as 3 free agents to their roster in order to prepare for the 2020 season. I don't mind them improving. Like, why I say
is that anti-competitive though? Like, doesn't that feel a little like? Imagine you go through this full set, and I get that this year, like this whole season, right, is kind of just a crazy thing anyway. But you have like you want to try to preserve the season mattering as much as you can. Is that a fair assumption?
Sure.
And all of a sudden, you give these teams an opportunity to sign, a half a dream team for a month or whatever of playoffs, right? Like that doesn't feel very great, right? Like, what's the worst case that happens here, I would argue, is that Decay has such a profound impact on the Washington Justice that we see them traveling to Asia.
Yeah.
That should be, yeah.
And the reason why I say that's the worst thing that could happen, because it's a team that had an unfair advantage to rewriting their roster in a way that affected a team that was honestly pretty and created that for them. So I totally see that there, but I feel like your solution for allowing everybody to do that just exacerbates that problem. Makes it way worse.
Well, doesn't that just even the playing field? Like, if everybody
it
has
evens the playing field, but
yeah.
it totally ruins the competitive integrity of the season.
I agree to an extent, but the playoff seeding rules are still very punishing towards those that have finished very badly in the season. So I feel less bad about that.
Yeah, the season is kind of a wash.
Yeah, but if you go from a team
much.
that's like the Justice, and let's say just magically, right, the Justice find a way to upgrade to be a Mayhem level caliber team, Is it really that punishing to them on that part of the bracket?
Well, the thing is, they can upgrade, but others can also upgrade, right?
Right.
And
If they have the money to, if they have the resources to, if they...
I mean,
sure, totally.
Yeah, sure. And, but the same could be said before the season, right? That we're not all cooking with the same.
I mean, you
water.
expect to sign people between October and November or December, wherever the new signing windows are. You plan for that. You budget for that. You don't budget for signing people in August. Probably.
We're going to talk about it, but this is a reality we have to get used to with the roster signing things that have been presented in these updated roster logs. The fluidity of rosters will increase manifold next season. And
that's okay.
And maybe we can, like, I don't mind tuning down the number. Maybe it's just one, even though one would be maybe, I mean, there's stuff can go very wrong in that sense, where it's like maybe 2 players fall sick, right? Yep. Even though I then say, like, I also think 7 players is not enough to have as a standard roster. And if you'll have less, if you really only have 6 starting players and 2 of them are off tanks, tough luck. Like, that's your competitive disadvantage you've chosen or earned by not putting enough money in. And of course, that's also a weird scenario because sponsorship money is down and everything. But yeah,
not where I thought you were headed, but I'm kind of interested in where the league sits on the Justice only basically having 6 starting players, because Lolshish is effectively not on this roster. Is on the payroll. I'm hopefully getting paid. Know nothing about that, but
I mean, I would assume so. They have to have 7. That's why they're inactive, right?
I mean, technically, yes, they have 7, but they don't. They have 6. Lolshish can't play. There's no chance of him playing.
That's not what qualifies an active roster slot. It doesn't.
But what's stopping a team from doing something similar where it's just like, well, we have 6 players. We just have an inactive
if a team wants to operate on the having 6 players plus 1 other, the league puts that there as an expected minimum so that teams essentially leave themselves a buffer, right? If the team decides that they can't or they haven't been able to fill that spot, I can tell you this, I don't think that, right? I don't know what the ability for Washington to sign a meaningful impact player, or if they even wanted to. We can argue if that's mismanagement or not. I guess is the point. We can argue if that's mismanagement or not, but that's a league rule change that needs to happen.
100%. And that's what I'm saying. Is where does the league sit on this? Why is this a thing that's able to happen throughout the league? And we get a rule update and there's nothing.
Do you try to enforce mandatory minimum play times?
No,
because that's the next. How do you get somebody like Lolshish on a roster? Do you have to enforce that they're in the country that they play in? Do you have to enforce?
I think maybe just changing it to active players, so 7 active players.
Yeah, I don't even I don't care. You just lose. Then you got if you only have 5 players, then you enter the server with 5 players, or I suppose you can field a coach in those cases. I mean, I don't care for your competitive disadvantage. I
think we were all kind of just banging that drum at the start of the season, even with travel. Somebody's going to forfeit a game. Yeah. Somebody's going to miss a flight. Somebody's not going to have the visa in time. Somebody's going to forfeit. Miss me with the emergency subs. You knew ahead of time. You guys should have gotten your stuff together. Granted, extenuating circumstances can happen. COVID. Strange geopolitical moves, all understandable. Maybe the league can work with that, but if it comes down to, well, one of our players just can't get a visa for a year and a half, I don't know. That's where I go.
I'm fine for the skeptical hat. I would hope that the league has more insight into how that process has gone and has been able to test that due diligence a little bit, because it almost sounds like you're insinuated that after the team decided to go full Korean, they haven't even tried to bring Lolshish over, which I think is probably fair. But up until that point,
I mean, they signed him at
that's
the
a
start
story.
at the end of 2019.
Here, disclaimer: I know nothing of the Losich situation.
It's weird, though.
I honestly, honest to God, absolutely don't. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But how does that not smell? What is going on there?
Bizarre.
I mean, the whole
Like-
Washington season smells this year, right? They lose two of their most
kind of.
public players, completely out of the blue. I'm talking about Corey and Stratus, by the way. They decide to then fully restructure, go full Korean. They remove their GM. They remove their all of or most of their coaching staff, and they've kept Lolsish, who has even said in his stream before, he goes, I can't play at it. I can't remember if it's I can't play or I don't want to play because of the gap. I'm not going to be able to improve with this team with an all Korean roster.
Sure.
Yeah. And I will also say, like, if what the Justice say, which I assume to be like good old Bayesian, my prior is only that I know the story of the Washington Justice, them saying they will at least get Lulsish visa, and they've committed to that. That's kind of nice, and that's honestly more than some other teams have done in the Overwatch League, right?
100%.
At the same time, I don't think even the ping is that prohibitive. For instance, like Numlock plays, right? So theoretically, you could. It's more the all Korean roster thing, and then I mean, Lulsish could have played beforehand. We don't know what the situation is, right? No. And it's also like it smells like the type of situation where if we actually find out what happens, I look like an insensitive idiot in hindsight, because whatever might like that's just a weird kind of situation where there's so many eventualities.
100%.
Where there's probably someone made a mistake or something, and
maybe.
Like
could be as simple as that.
The underlying assumption for us has to be that humans are fallible, right?
100%.
So whatever it is, I honestly really don't.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is. The problem is they have 6 starting active players. Yes. If something were to happen to them, you have new rules, obviously not with this update, but you have like the emergency kind of substitute, like 2-week, I think it is, contracts you can sign people to. Okay, that's fine. That's fair. But like 6 active players doesn't feel conducive of a franchise team. Like,
I agree, but is that on the league to enforce?
Who else? I mean, I hate to sound
the team who's playing
brash,
$20 million
I don't know who
slot.
else is.
Let them manage their team how they want. They're paying $20 million for their slot. Sure, put those minimums on there. But expecting the league to anticipate that a team signs 7 people and they can't get one person over, and then mid season 2 people drop, and then you have to do a full restructure on it. If I can't expect the league to anticipate that though either.
Sure. And then if you say the league doesn't have the responsibility, then the responsibility is on the team. And then if they can't fulfill the roster, it is not the league's obligation to create some weird rule to bail them out, right? That's just like can't
this isn't a bailout rule though, right? So the way not. The way I think that this happened, and it's why I kind of asked, like, do you think that the league didn't know that this was going to happen? This was an unintended consequence, or do you think that they took a look, tried to write the rules in a way that would have the most minimal impact while also enabling teams to field a competitive roster, and they knew that there would just be the Washington Justice would kind of be a team that would benefit from that? It's kind of the big question I was trying to get down in the weed tangented a little bit.
I think there's twofold issue. One, it could be that their intention was to allow things like the Decay trade, in which case they failed their messaging, right?
There's only one team that would be eligible for that, right? Unless they force retirement.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Or the other 2 situations,
sure.
right?
Sure.
And then the second thing is they maybe the underlying spirit is just to keep the competition and the integrity of the playoffs in check, right? And we have to ask, does Decay signing for the Justice do that? To a degree, it might. It might contribute towards that. But will it likely indicate, like, could the Justice have signed, for instance, players beforehand? Most definitely could have, right? To my knowledge, also
Maybe.
just on a contract that that expires this season. I actually don't know the specifics there. That's
Right.
a
That was going to be my
question for someone.
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't know how that works actually. That's a good question. Well, anyway. But like the thing that would suck is if we sit somewhere in Asia, have our finals, and one team doesn't have enough players, and that's absolutely like a good rule that we have 6 players, because we don't know what travel might happen, right? We don't know what might geopolitically happen in mid of September. And which country in the world just gets enough of the US and closes their borders down towards people there, right? Like there are so many eventualities to this where I like the flexibility of the rule. I would have just liked to see it even more open in order to give an even playing field without these, oh yeah, my player just started cuffing, or like, oh yeah, he's actually a non-flyer. He came here by paddle boat. Like it's I don't know.
He rafted over.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. Again, it's one of those things that I've got to imagine, I've got to hope that was like a verbalized commitment from the league saying like, hey, we'll try to work with you if for whatever reason one of your players or you can't field like a proper starting lineup, we'll give you some leeway, maybe postpone a match, work around your schedule so that everything can go as smoothly as possible going into the season, because travel, again, it's going to get messy. It's going to get crazy. Flights delay, this, that, the other thing. We talked about all the things that could go wrong. Why now? Granted, COVID, traveling, I get it. It's just like, I don't know.
It is really weird that we're getting this messaging weeks after the format for the playoffs has already been announced as being Asia. So this is something that has been planned for months at this point.
Yep.
And now we're just getting these COVID fallback
Travel
systems now.
Yeah.
Is that intentionally to do it after the signing windows to mitigate what we talked about earlier with Yiska, with teams trying to sign short-term roster roles to bolster their playoff chances? Like, I don't know. That feels pretty insidious to me. But at the same time, like, and I think I said this in Discord today, like, this is probably one of the best moves for Washington Justice to make to show that there's competence as far as a commitment to winning. Like, what signing gives you the best chance to win for the Washington Justice? As much as you hate to say it, it's probably getting Decay. It also probably gets you a first look at Decay for signing him to a longer contract next season. And beyond.
The thing is, it's the other way around, isn't it? It's like Decay probably is somewhere in Washington, just like in his throne, being fed like frozen grapes in the heat. Pre is just there with his gigantic, what's it called? Just like, Master Decay, what would you like in order for you to like us more so you sign with us like season as well? Like, it's, I don't know. Like, that's just a hilarious situation.
Get out of here with that. Yeah.
A fan. It's called a fan, true.
It's called a fan of all the words that Yiska can't find. All right. Any closing thoughts on this? I feel like we're kind of circling here at this point. Conclusions.
I guess at the
yeah,
quick like summary. It is bizarre that the Washington Justice are able to sign Decay because of the messaging of the rule. They haven't had anybody elect not to travel. They haven't had any retirements. They have a starting lineup that meets the minimum for the league standard. And what was the other one? Elect not to travel, retire, and then COVID. Obviously that kind of
related things.
We don't know if the Justice have any, potential or, some sort of case that would put them below the league minimum, I, again, can't. Tough to speculate on that, but it is, if those are going to be the criteria,
they will get to test them out. They will get to test Decay out against the Shock on the 22nd.
Dude, if I'm like, which team could I be? Like, if I'm a team going into playoffs, my main tank suddenly just like has terrible flight scare. Just can't. We gotta get Mac. We gotta. Right? Like, do you think other teams will exploit that rule?
Probably not. Especially if you're a top 4 team. I'm gonna guess like nobody's going to try and game the system that hard. It'd be a different story if everybody had to travel like before the top 4, if that makes sense. Like for playoffs entirely, we're going to China, let's say. Then I could see maybe some lower teams saying, hey, I know you're a team player. What if we just, make a deal? Maybe you don't get on the plane. Maybe I scratch your back. You know what I'm saying? Like, then I could see that. But the top 4 teams, like, it's not like some sort of like honor thing. It's just I don't see them kind of forfeiting their chance.
It's kind of risky, eh?
A little bit. I could see lower teams attempting something, but I don't see anybody pulling a kib and not getting on the plane, and then they fly an Oni God, right? Like, I don't see that happening.
The kib rule, I like that.
Yeah. All right, chat. There you have it. There's the Decay thoughts. I don't know. I think we covered it pretty well. Let's talk a little bit about the roster rule update, because that's a thing. How do we go 37 minutes on that?
Yeah. At least we're part of the roster update rules, right?
Right. Roster update rules. We're just going to give you the highlights here. My spreadsheet's messing up. Okay, here we go. So as we kind of discussed the big one for the 2020 season still, so you can do that. We've got some key dates. September 14th, teams can begin signing any players not signed to an OWL contract, as well as re-sign or extend existing contracts. October 12th, teams can begin submitting player trades for review to the front office. November 23rd is the deadline for all teams to have signed at least 7 players. So far, so good? Sweet. 2021 contract changes. So there are 2...
Oh, sorry. One...
Yeah.
The line, the way this lines up, right? So it's October 23rd to November 20th, right? So if I'm a
October
player,
12th to November 23rd, I believe.
October 23rd, right?
Yeah.
And then the window closes on November 20. So any player not under contract into the 2020 season will become a free agent with a specific expiration date dependent on the season in which their original agreement was executed. And then on only 3 days later, deadline for all teams to have minimum 7 players signed. So as SEG player agent Bench pointed out, this is absolute... Like that's a formula for at least a handful of players to get screwed. Because here's what happens. You are a player, let's say on a top team, right? Okay. But you're the second player. And
second best.
You're the second in line. You're still very good. You're still probably above league average, right?
Sure.
And now your team on the last... now your team signs someone, you are released on November 20th. You are better than probably even the starter than some of the teams that had to get their minimum 7-player deadline by November 23rd. Now you only have 3 days to be signed in that first wave, when a lot of teams will already have blown their budget on the creation of that first roster. So it is very possible that superior players, above average players, will not find a home immediately or find worse destinations based on lower ranking teams already having used their buyout and their roster allocation money in that sense. Now, of course, there's some shenanigans going on there with rules that come down the line where that is less punishing. It's still not amazing. Like, it's still not something that feels good. I feel like the window here should have been significantly wider than it ended up being.
I'd like it to be a little wider. Okay, so if I'm understanding the rules correctly, what is stopping a team from signing that second string player, let's call them?
Well, he's still under contract with the first team, and they would have to pay buyout in that case. So they're holding him until, instead of saying, okay, October 23rd, you got to have
So he's not released, or they're not released.
He's not released.
They're not released. So, I mean, he still has a technical job.
Yeah.
Probably no chance. Well, not no chance, but, harder chance of seeing starting play time. Yeah, I mean, it's not fantastic.
Chad, you're my barometer. Have you understood the issue I explained? Is that something that people understand, that there's a problem like with a lot of teams going early on their budget, and in tandem with orgs being able to keep, because even if you intend to release a player, it is against your incentive to release them early because you want to wait as long as possible 100%. For a buyout, right?
Right. So in this hypothetical, you don't release the player.
You don't release the player, and you don't even tell the player that he's released. No. So,
you don't tell the player your intentions. You don't show them your hand because it's in your best incentive to just wait. Maybe they're useful, maybe they're not. Yeah. It's not player centric, and that's my vibe.
That's the thing that runs through the entire rules, right?
Yeah.
That we go in orgs first.
All of the changes feels very orgs first, which I think there is an argument to be had that a couple. I think there are some ways that players can hold like teams hostage, in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
but I generally lean more towards the player side of things, because of stuff that Yiska's saying. At the end of the day, this is a business, so they have to operate like these. Yeah. Well, they don't have to. They choose to. They actively choose to.
They might as well. Okay, we will get to the specific rule, but it's a direct result of some player behavior, which is still understandable to a point. I guess we'll just get to it, and
I think we're on the same page when it comes to that rule as well.
So, but 21,
the contract
changes.
I wish that was a little longer. I still don't know if your gripes get solved with that. Mm-hmm. What's stopping a team from just, again, not notifying the player, not communicating to the player that you're effectively being replaced, not released but replaced?
Dude, I'm telling you, there's a massive misalignment of incentives in this league where, like, we are not putting the right incentives behind very important issues. Here it is, like, the team has the incentive to not tell a player that they're not planning for him with 2021 because the player would then go to his agent or like to the team that he tries to get with and say, just wait for me, plan with me, and you can have me without a buyout, right? That's one incentive that's screwed. Honestly, like, I don't know. I was thinking about incentives, especially like around player mental health, how you could like tie incentives to that. I almost want to have anonymous like ratings at the end of the season where every player tells
like Glassdoor reviews.
It has Glassdoor reviews with like values, and if a certain average value isn't reached, then every upper management person gets like 20% of their salary or something like that. We gotta put some emphasis before this goes south very hard, and go up in the league. Tie their bonuses towards player well-being, because this is like,
yeah.
If
I mean, we came into
traveling,
this season worried about that. Yeah, we were. I mean, I think we were worried about travel. I think hit the fan when it came to hero pools, and now we're getting more org emphasis with these rule changes. Gonna be honest with you, I agree.
Pretty hard for individual players to lobby the league.
yes, exactly.
I mean, yeah.
And then you have some players that are taking, like, rightfully, because they don't have any law, anything going in their way. They're taking the onus for their money because they can. Why would you not exploit a system that otherwise doesn't care about you either, and also doesn't provide you with a salary to have a life afterwards, or a retirement rather? A life is definitely possible. But
well, okay. I mean, I mean, if you look at like the scale of how much money it takes to get into the league versus what's paid to the players, like it is.
And it's getting worse. It's getting so much worse, dude. Like, we're going to talk about these rules. I understand some of them. I'll stop myself here because I want to talk the specific rules.
100%. I guess my big thing with what you just kind of said was like, I think we can't necessarily talk about like giving like them a nest egg, like this massive amount of money, because that's already a problem with how much and how quickly salaries have increased. If I'm to understand your point, that's already an issue, and it's only, I think, we'll see what happens with COVID economically going into 2021. I would hope that budgets get more in check, but we can't have our cake and eat it too, in that sense, where it's like we want to incentivize the players, we want to give the power to the players, but we also can't like just give them a ton of money, because that's just not good for everybody. So it's got to be like what Yiska is saying, where it has to be incentive structures to protect them, but also give some sort of power to the teams so they don't just get.
There needs to be checks and balances, and I think that none of us are naive enough to think that there is a perfect system that exists that equally incentivizes players as well as teams. And that gets muddy, and I get it. I think my biggest frustration is that most of the changes this year really seem to protect the teams in the league much more than they do the players. And they did add, and there is some vague language about the ability for individual players to have a little bit more control on negotiations of their contracts in different safety structures. I have to remember, I think that was from the Spectre twit longer kind of thing.
That kind of bothers me. I'm not gonna lie. Why do we always have to be secretive? That is not how you should put that out. Stop it.
I'm
kind of over, like, I get like it's communication directly with the community. I respect that. I get it, but we have to stop with like the secretive, vague language. Say what you mean. Don't leave anything open to interpretation. Just tell us. Just say what you have to say.
Dude, it's also
unless I get, again, maybe I'm the naive one here. Maybe I'm not seeing what like this is trying to portray, and maybe it's, you know, giving the players some sort of card that, you know, if you have it publicly that they can't use as leverage. I have no clue, but I'm kind of over the whole like, well, maybe we'll get rid of it. I don't know.
I'm not okay. The thing is, I'm sure John Spector is a swell guy, right?
Sure.
But how they try to pull this off is some Zuckerberg, like lizard people.
Smoking some meats, boys.
Dude, there goes any chance of us getting somebody from the league on the show, by the way. Thanks a lot.
Whatever.
Send him to Pletched and make him personable, so he has some brownie points with them. haha, guys, we just totally just came up with that joke in the moment. Am I funny yet? And relatable? Okay, now, in order to be more relatable to players and community members, I am going to give you the full information, heartfelt, on my Twitter account, which I personally very much wrote without the assistance of a PR team. Come on, dude. Like, would this guy look any different in front of Congress than Mark Zuckerberg? No.
So to be fair, though,
No, not at all.
to be fair, though, like, I don't know. This feels like a little bit of a low blow attack on John on this stuff, because
I think he's probably just a mouthpiece.
It's not his. You can't change.
It's not
like,
about
you can't change how personable
It's about
you
the
are.
strategy, how it's wrapped.
I agree
that is
that
robotic as hell.
Strategy is cracked. At the same time, I don't know what type of legal stuff you have to go through with those types of communications. Like, I'm learning a ton about the things that we can and can't say in our marketing for our new company. That
Sure, absolutely.
we've been saying against under a corporation. We've been saying publicly for so long. I'm like, oh, we couldn't have said that. Oh, we opened ourselves up to this liability. Oh, we did.
Well,
oh crap, like, and I get it. But find a mouthpiece then for the league. Find one.
Is he not?
Or just wrap it in the official
But I'm saying
posts,
maybe
everything.
he's
Make
not. Well, yes, you're right. But like, maybe he's not the guy to be the mouthpiece. Maybe so. Like, think of who's a great example of somebody who, like, isn't the lead but ends up being kind of the mouthpiece of, like, think of Deej for Bungie. Think
not
of
in that one.
we could do like Lore for World of Warcraft. He's on the team now. Like, or I mean, just imagine this. Imagine if they brought on somebody with like any of the Owlcasters. Let's just say Sideshow for an example.
Okay.
So imagine if Sideshow's job was just to communicate these changes to the fans, do the PR rounds, and go.
Sure.
I mean, to a degree, they do that with Zoe just kind of running things through.
They do.
But the thing is, what they should be doing is what Riot does. You get like the guy responsible for that specific part of the production. So if I have a cheating issue, I get the anti-cheat guy. If I have a netcode issue, I get the netcode guy, right?
Do they do that for their
then
league,
come
though,
up
for LCS? And those different
usually
types of...
the commissioner. Well, I mean, I haven't paid much attention to it as of late, but when I did, the commissioner was on there talking about things a lot more than what I feel like Owl does.
I mean, let's not. I mean, Riot
and maybe that is. I think a good argument is.
Recently, so.
I think that there is a good argument that to say, and I'd be fine with the rebuttal of, like, that should be the commissioner's job, is to be personable, to be able to go up on a camera and to be able to use the proper platforms and be able to
100%.
Yes, they're going to need help from a PR team as far as how do we communicate these changes. He doesn't have to be a PR expert, but this to me lacks vision as far as how do you communicate with a community, how do you communicate with your league that you are overseeing. And this isn't just like hey, I wanted to clarify 2 points really quick. We didn't think that the Decay thing was going to happen. Like something like that, sure, put it on Twitter or whatever and stuff like that. And he didn't say that, by the way. That's just like a hypothetical thing.
Yeah.
But it's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 important paragraphs of clarifications, intentions. And is it even linked on the official?
No,
it's
not.
I don't know, but I'm gonna put money on it not being anywhere near that.
I'm gonna go back to make sure that it's
not.
not, just so that I don't. Yeah,
Nope.
it's not there. It's
That's
not even
not
linked on the
there.
official post, and it's not like transposed anywhere on it.
And this is a constant thing.
It's a
Whether it's
reply
the
tweet
minimum
on Twitter.
league. Sure. Like why are we hearing from Albert, God bless his heart, friend of the show, that the league minimum is 8, now 7?
Yeah.
Why is this something that we have to hear secondhand from a GM who probably has, maybe there's an interest in keeping that a secret. I have no idea.
I don't know if he was supposed to share that, if I'm being honest.
Probably not. I'm going to guess. Probably not.
I mean, the same thing happened with Susie with the minimum competitive
Sure.
sales tax.
Like, why is that not a public thing? Is there any kind of league incentive you can think off the top, or not league incentive, but like an org incentive to not have that public, where it's just like a agreed upon thing, where it's not just enforced, but it's just, hey, we're gonna rail the players and not pay more than X amount. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that's what's tiresome with all of this, where everything has to be hush hush again. I mean, I hate to drudge up old news, but still don't have a rule book. It's just like
crowdsource
kind of
these
over
things.
it.
Like if we like, just like with the situation Shanghai Dragons against Boston in early season 2, where we find out that two-way rule, where Fusion's just like, yes, I can play, guys. Like we already said back in the day, if we had the rule book, I bet some nerd would have found stuff.
You would have,
and this would have never happened to the degree that it does.
I believe it would have.
I agree.
100%.
Sure.
It's and
that's
again,
not the way we do things.
Of course not. I to Yiska's point though, with it being, and hopefully I'm remembering it correctly and not misrepresenting your point, but I hope there's nothing nefarious about this or super overly business that removes them or incentivizes them from not posting anything critical about the league on their official channels.
Yeah. I mean, it
affects quarterly reports. Maybe investors get pissed. If that is something that you're just dodging by posting on Reddit, I've got a problem with that, Spectre.
I mean, you can definitely join me in my crusade against capitalism on the streets, Mr. Spectre. That's like no, but yeah, it's a weird situation. Maybe it's just legal, and that's the best they can do. In which case,
sure, if that's the case, I get it, and that's not anything that we're ever going to hear publicly, and that's not anything we're ever going to get confirmed. Again, like the optimist in me hopes that it is, but then the other 90% of me is like, yeah, but is it though? Is it really? Yeah. Come on. Like, of course it's going to be like all of the glowy fun stuff is going to be on official channels. And then you go on Reddit to be personal, to be communicative with the community. It's a direct line to the commissioner of the league. Look, I think you hit the nail on the head with the Zuckerberg thing in front of Congress. That's to me, that's just perfect. I think that's
I realize it's like a crass image, and it's totally unfair. It's good 100%. Fun, guys. It's good fun.
But you get the point.
Yeah.
You get the point.
Yeah. Okay. So where are we on the rules then?
Okay.
Did we jump all around?
We haven't hit the other one yet.
We haven't started on the rules. We're literally like two.
So we haven't gotten to the 2A contracts. The two contract types. Mm-hmm. Two contract types now. So you have the season long ones, which I think, as far as I understand, are relatively similar to the contract types that we've had this entire time. And then now we have what are 30-day contracts, which are kind of an iterational change from the 14-day contracts we got in the second half of this season.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
On its face, it seems fine. Do we want to get in the details of these?
Let's talk good for a second. Like let's talk about what this solves for a second, because it does solve a few things. Number one,
it does.
From the season's outset, teams have a channel to improve their rosters without incurring huge costs, especially temporarily for player sickness, for player emergency, or for the 1 month
or for travel issues,
banned and you have to field somebody else.
That too.
Travel issues, any sort of logistical issues, works great. It also probably functions as an extended trial with the team. Get them on the stage, have them play.
I certainly hope nobody does that.
I mean, like, look.
You got. I mean, we'll get to it, but I think
this works for especially some more tried and true players. I think it does. Like,
so
let's get a Decay in here. But anyways,
yeah.
Okay. those are my positives on this.
Yeah.
I think 30-day contracts, I think, make sense. There's a fluidity to it. And, who knows, like, what if we get a return to 2-2-2 style goats where, we get this weird DPS
100%.
hero who's actually a tank, and we need another tank player. Like,
I mean, I don't think
doing
that's too far off with how much speculation that's going into Overwatch 2 and how we're rebalancing heroes and maybe even redesigning them and moving them to other roles. Like, that could just very well be the case coming into the season. Something gets reworked, a new hero is added, a bunch of new heroes are added, and now, X team is left without a feasible player for that role or that hero, and you have a little bit more fluidity. 100%. I'm appreciative of it. I think it's at least a step some direction. I don't think it's necessarily backwards. It's kind of like shifting, and it's in a good way.
All right,
But-
Yiska.
I mean, the big thing is in this clause, and I see it's not like as a major point in the notes. The major thing is that there is no longer guaranteed contracts.
Yep.
That, and of course, there's a negotiability in the length. It has to be a minimum of 30 days, and the salary has to be paid up until that. But just think of how almost irresponsible it already is to pursue a career in Overwatch. And then a meta switch, not even an ill will of your team or an underperformance on your part, can end your career within weeks.
Oh,
And you're home.
do you think that players sign contracts with the intention of making more money than what is guaranteed to them by their contract?
No, but the amount of money that was guaranteed to them was significantly higher than it is now. Now, the guarantee is 30 days. You can sign, and then your manager hands you like another paper, and you're like, oh yeah, you're fired. 30 days, like, right? Or you directly get the 30-day
That's
contract.
the minimum buyout fee. So this is negotiated by the players. So this
Yes.
is something where the players have to be willing to accept a 30-day minimum buyout fee.
Is that okay? Maybe I'm not understanding, but is that not the league standard with these new rules?
I mean, the standard has to be negotiated. That's the thing,
Okay.
and that's also why I advise every player to get a competent agent to negotiate these things for you.
Keyword on
Or
competent.
be really hard.
Please.
Yes. No low effort of the rack type of stuff. I said.
Yeah.
But it's also that it gives desperate players for those edge teams that like already are at the minimum of what they have to provide, and another way to provide less. Now, I also don't want to trash the rule absolutely, because let's be honest, Overwatch is not a game for career longevity, and is also, the current rules are not flexible enough to accommodate the realities of this league for a team. If I'm a team owner, I have the following problem. I'm not making enough money to just have you sit around, right? Like the risk I'm taking is potentially like business destroying. And I also have the problem that this game changes so quickly and so rapidly, like 2-2-2, like hero pools, that your career, like that you might suck just like next week. Without,
it's probably odds on
without
you're going to
any
suck.
one of us making any mistakes here.
Yep.
So this has bitten a lot of teams. And also, I will say, for instance, like in the Texan cases, it wasn't just that the teams were bitten. It was also that the teams themselves made a mistake there. That's also a definite case, right? Like the length of these contracts were, especially in
You're
Dallas.
talking about the envious 3-year-ish presumed contracts that were
now,
essentially guaranteed.
I had a funny phrase for that, and I'll tell you why my framing was completely unfair. I wanted to call it the, I don't know, like the Texan rent-seeking boogaloo or whatever, right? But it is not rent-seeking because, like, I have no obligation in esports to, once my contract is on it, like I'm being signed for a specific case, I don't make enough money to just walk away from this due to Dignity's case or having a better thing lined up. That's not how it is. Like, you can feel a way about Unco and AKM in that regard, but that to me, there's no moral failing based on them just, like, this is not a career that you go home to and retire at 30. That's just not what it is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these guys, and I'm not talking about AKM and Unco now specifically, but a lot of these guys delay their education in their most formative, important years where they're still fresh and they're like, it's just a scientific fact that putting these things in motion early will net you better results. And a lot of these guys are super talented and could probably succeed also in other careers.
Sure.
So by delaying your education, of course, you're not ruining your life, literally, right? But you're making a serious trade-off because, like, what do you know? Like, how the industries will react towards you. Like, I played 30 days for a professional team, which took me 3 years to get on. Now I'd like to join MIT, please.
Yeah.
Like, and or like, I'd like to, I don't know, do an apprenticeship with your elite company or whatever, even though my personal talent level would probably support it. That's not how it flies, right? So I don't like the frame of or the term of rent seeking is completely unfair. But you also, to a degree, have to protect ownerships that are suffering in this global situation where the sponsorship dollars aren't flying and the entire business model that they counted on is currently still completely up in the air because, like, we don't know what 2021 will look like, right?
Yep.
So you also got to protect our teams, because if they go belly up, everyone goes belly up.
Yeah, everybody's
So I trust that these anti-player rules aren't just to give bigger bonuses to team management. And I don't think I have not concluded my research on the actual economic realities of those teams, but my gut feeling says it's not a good in a perfect situation where that is the case, right? So I don't mind the protection of teams to a degree here, and I hope that a lot of teams give way for proper negotiation. And I would also like to see the league pursue ways in which former players can more seamlessly pursue their education right after. That would entail connecting to colleges immediately, maybe getting them on the collegiate teams, having like open channels or counselors or whatever.
Scholarships, like think of the different. There's so many ways that I think that could be improved. I think that's something that, you know, we saw this with professional sports all the way through the 70s to honestly even up to the early 2000s, where you saw like, especially, and this is something that I worked on a long time in Minneapolis, inner city kids who, you know, a lot of their ways out in a lot of ways was this hope for like pro sports. And now esports is where pro sports was 30 years ago, in the sense that you have these players, these kids growing up wanting to be a professional athlete, capital E dash capital athlete, of course. Just kidding. And there's no kind of fallout or nest in that. Even if they succeed and make it there, the money isn't even there for that, for a lot of the players who even make it pro, especially in a game like Overwatch. Like Overwatch, the top tier talent definitely makes some good money, but especially, you know, kind of like the middle and lower tier talent, it's probably not a whole lot more than I don't know, like your regular, like out of college job.
And it's also, keep in mind, League of Legends average salary, I believe, is 410K.
Yeah,
I don't know the specifics, but I'd be very, very surprised if a significant or even a handful of players were over that.
Is that average or?
I think that's the average.
That's average,
like
yeah.
mean or
And
median.
you've got people making six figures for sure. Like it's reported, I think Impact's making six figures.
Seven
I think
figures.
Seven.
sorry. Yeah, Impact's making 7. If memory serves me, I think Vulcan for C9 was making, or at least was bought out for 7. Yeah, that's the average. So I think it's probably better to take the median,
Probably
kind of to
I
get a
would
better
assume,
representation.
I would assume, but yeah. Either way, like the point of it being is that it's there is risk incurred, to Yiska's point.
For sure.
And so what I'm hearing is that like I think Yiska, you've been very fair in like recognizing the needs of the league and the organization needing the league and the teams to be there and be a part, while at the same time not being predatory on players, because you're right, you're talking 18 to 23-year-olds who, I mean, man, what would you do for those years back, huh?
Yeah. And the problem is, like, this is so easy to push these things through and then just normalize them once the world normalizes. And that's a no-go. And that's why, like, they gotta have some leverage and have some form of agreement to push progress forward as players, right? Like, we can talk about the fairness of these specific rules, but truth be told, they are anti-player and they don't have an expiration date on these. And we like there has to be some. I mean, there are sort of like pushback entities, mostly from agents, right?
Sure.
Like that's just about the only instance players have for their protection. But that isn't enough to negotiate, right? Like, so while the alarm bells have been ringing for a while, they're not ringing necessarily more now, maybe slightly based on these rules. But like, that is not a normal behavior that should be normalized in normal times. That's the problem. And then we got to take care of our players more. Like, we have high retirements. We have like I'm not sure if I would call it a mental health crisis, in terms of like just like burnout.
Yeah, I think that's more across the board. Again, you have like the developers unintentionally putting a gun to your head. Now you have rule changes that are more putting a gun to your head. You have 2 guns to your head. I have to, feel for the hostage in this case.
So
again, hyperbolic, but you see the point.
Bench did hop into the chat here and did leave a message that I think is really interesting. He says, I do think the option to give non-guaranteed deals will actually be good for everyone involved. I'm sure 1 or 2 crap orgs will take advantage of it, and I'm sure you can guess who, but there are quite a few current issues that giving teams better spending flexibility will fix. And I think that that's right. I also was going to say there are a lot of organizations who I think have earned or have shown that they are players first, right? Like there's not very many teams who are like league minimum accommodations, minimum this. They've invested more than what is required of them to be in the league. And I think that should be noted, to the point. And 100%. I agree. There's also the issue of teams are unwilling or unable to sign players because of the necessity of committing so much in a game that was designed, not by design, but has ended up being so volatile.
Yep.
And so I get it, and I think Bench is. I
think he's probably one of the better people to kind of speak on this. Obviously, working directly with teams and players in the league. Obviously, I do worry that it takes one bad apple to kind of spoil the bunch there. And like he's mentioned, there are some teams that you can kind of rightly kind of nod at and be like, yeah, probably not all of them, just a few. And I think that's already enough for me to be like, okay, what are we going to do about this? Are we going to continue to let them get railed? Or is the league going to do something about it? We have to see action in that sense because again, it's going to happen.
This allocation of incentives, like because the players that are in the top teams or just the mid-tier teams, where everyone is like has the player's best interest at heart, I don't have an incentive to really fight for anyone. I'm doing well, right? Like in that particular regard. So, and then there's like the I don't know 20 guys at the bottom, just like, could the other 200 care about us? No, misallocation of incentives. Right.
I hate to be completely altruistic about it, but we have to kind of have the players clear a path for the others below them, right? And it's difficult when you have bad actors, even if it's just one, even if it's two. It takes one just miss, and I'm already kind of sour grapes about it. This is on top of the game being entirely too volatile, the league and the developers not really knowing what to do with it. We're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
I think it's dangerous to, on top of that, I don't even know exactly if it's the guarantee, if it's just the feeling of being anti-player. I think we haven't seen the start of, we have seen the start, but I don't think we've seen the end of players questioning whether or not Overwatch League is going to be their forever home. And you can take from that what you will. We're not doing ourselves any favors with this. And I agree to most of the points being made. The orgs have to be taken care of. There are some bad actors in terms of players, 100%. So they have, the teams have to have some sort of leverage there. It's not an easy situation to fix.
It isn't.
I don't know exactly when and where to cede power to the teams. I'm generally more player centric. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I'd rather see though.
Yeah, I think that this is one of those things where this is where we do the classic tactical crouch red flag. Where we discuss, hopefully with the best interests of like players in the league and what we think is the most important in mind, all the while fully recognizing this is the moment where we put the big asterisk on the conversation and saying that this is not necessarily something that is going to have a huge negative impact on the league. There's already people who represent players who are saying like this could have a really good impact on the league. We talked about some of the places where this could get exploited. Doesn't mean it's going to. Just because the league minimum is 50K doesn't mean that every player is making 50K. That's not the best player in the league. Just because this is the minimum amount of health insurance you get doesn't mean that is what you are going to end up being given. There's something still very grassroots about a lot of the esports and esports organizations run by I think a lot of younger people too who are a little bit more passionate about the responsibility behind being an employer, being an economy driver. And so I have this, there's a partial relief there in that I think that OWL has done a relatively good job in bringing organizations in who largely care, but there are still some bad actors there that we've talked about so many times. We're not going to bring it up again. And there's, but they should be held accountable too.
Just a little self-celebration. Like today I wrote a piece about coaching and like the ways we've come forward and also the ways Overwatch League has pushed some of the aspects of esports is actually pretty phenomenal when contrasted. Like I remember a time in 2010 at CeBIT where Michael O'Dell, the owner of Dignitas, was sleeping on a hostel floor so his players could have a bed. And we didn't have coaches. We couldn't run WoW Arena 5v5 because like paying 3 players to fly out was already like enough. Like getting even anyone to pay for your flight was a problem. We've come a long way. We now have like I think the average is like 3 or 4 coaching staff in the league. We have usually a general manager and a team manager supporting that. We have some form of translator in the cases where that is needed. There is a lot of stuff around, and that is usually.
You saw the smile. You saw the smile. You saw where
I saw it. But yeah, we've come a long way, and we've also allowed this scene to prosper in terms of like what the coaching staff is. Even like in teams like we have the same amount of coaches and sometimes more than League of Legends. And what I scrolled through,
Sure.
I think like we have definitely more than CS and Valorant at the moment. Of course, Valorant. I don't even know if you want that many, but yeah, like it's we have an overall a very expensive game in terms of like payroll and everything, and it's probably not as expensive as League of Legends.
Well, I mean,
but
give it the number of years that the LCS kind of system has been around, and then we can kind of like better reference that. But I don't know if we want to get too involved into it, but is that a good thing or an intentional thing rather? Is that an intentional thing from Blizzard, from the Overwatch League, brass, that they're pushing this forward, or is it completely unintentional? My feeling, it's all unintentional. They had no foresight into this.
I mean, that's also part of the thing with the game is it's hard to get away with less staff. We need 6 players. That's first off. And then the game is so complicated that you need like a positional coach, like a tank coach, like a toothbrushing coach. Like it is very complicated.
I think that's a little hyper specific.
Like, you throw the nade here, you go here, then you fake that, and we're gone, right? Like,
sure.
In League of Legends, I saw like four coaches being, or analysts being the norm. So yeah, that's sort of the main point. But yeah,
yes,
I mean, little celebration here. Like in terms of staff, we've come a long way in esports in the last decade.
I mean, I can't disagree with that.
And it's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to get better, hopefully. Like, I don't know. I'll put my optimist glasses on, and there's not a whole lot of reason for me to believe that we're going to see meaningful unilateral trends downward. I think some things will inevitably take a step back before they go forward, or maybe they go a step back and the league dies. But, yeah, I don't know. Anyways.
Well, ignore me.
I don't want to ignore
Let's move on to the next. Well, no, it was just another tangent of being like, I think we're due for a step back just over like across the very, very incredibly wide and general board. But I think it's probably for the best that happens either way. So it's a step back just to go forward kind of deal.
So let's talk about these two-way player changes then, because that's it's a big one, and then we don't actually have a ton of time. So yeah. Two-way player changes, and a lot of these changes look like what we've been asking for when they were first announced, and we go, what the hell are these? How is anyone supposed to use this? So two-way player changes, these are just the generalizations, and I'm sure Yiska will let me know if I missed any important points.
I actually don't. I haven't really thought this through at all, or have them read thoroughly, so you got to carry me through this.
So there's no limit to the number of players that can be on a two-way player contract. Two-way players without an affiliate academy team are eligible for contenders competitions. And the Overwatch League, this is verbatim, these next 4. The Overwatch League team must continue to pay their two-way players' salary and benefits while those players compete in contenders. Players and teams may agree to a tiered salary structure, but players must earn at least the league's minimum salary at all times. Teams without an academy team, affiliates may agree to player loan agreements with a contenders team. Player loan agreements must be submitted to the league office for approval. Any two-way player that does not play in 5 consecutive Overwatch League matches for the team over a minimum of 3 consecutive weeks will be eligible to participate in contenders or other non-league Overwatch esports competitions licensed by Blizzard, subject to team approval. And up to 4 two-way players may compete together on the same contenders team roster in any given contenders match. A contenders team may field two-way players belonging to different Overwatch League teams. Joe,
There's a lot there.
There is a lot there.
So my line immediately kind of draws to the former, Contenders Academy team affiliates versus a technical definition of the academy team, and if that's changed at all, or how that kind of plays into the loan agreements, because it doesn't seem very incentivized for teams to have academy teams if I can just kind of like brush up against square one, just as an example, and just export my bench players to them for whatever reason. Like, I guess it helps them, but it doesn't really further like structure tier 2. And it's something that kind of needs structure, I think. It's just kind of weird. I think it's good for the most part. It's just like, how does this all work with the rules that are already in place? That's kind of like where I sit with it. What does that mean for academy teams? Are academy teams still a thing? What is it? What really is an affiliate these days? Is it better to be an affiliate than it is to be an academy team? Like,
I think there's a lot more to know and understand. I think there are a lot of like questions aren't answered, but I feel like this. Yeah. Getting back to earlier, the spirit of this is to try to make it so that we don't have great teams sitting or great players sitting on the bench.
Sitting on the bench. Yeah.
And we don't run into Boston. Was that last year where they thought that they could field and then they couldn't? And then it was kind of like, you want this, in my opinion, you want the ability a bit to bring players up and down to allow them to improve. A player is not really improving at the pace necessarily in just, scrims and practice as they would if they were playing real matches with real stakes. Now, we can talk about the health of that tier 2 team in general, but I also think that having more competitive players, having players who are sitting on the bench in Overwatch League, being able to compete actually incentivizes me a lot more to want to watch those tier 2 those tier 2 tournaments as is. So if the goal here, and it seems to be, to allow players to be more fluid without exploiting like let's just play shock for our contenders team any weekend that we don't have an Overwatch League thing. Like, obviously you have to put in safeguards because that you run into those types of issues, but at the same time you raise the level of competition, and you also give those tier 2 players the opportunity to play with Overwatch League level competition who maybe aren't going from up down, but instead of going from down up. So
yep,
I
think generally it's a good thing. It's just like a good thing with a question mark tied to the end of it, where it's just like, I think this is good. I'm pretty sure this is good. I can't see anything on the offset that it's nefarious by any means. Yeah, I don't know. I'm about it. I think is this? I don't think this is anti-player, right? No, this is pro player across the board.
There's a lot to unpack here still. And like, I've mulled over it since the post came out, and I'm still kind of like, this seems good, and I can't seem to find situations in which players get exploited, or honestly, like organizations are forced to, make uncompetitive decisions.
Yeah, I think this would be a lot. I think it'd be a lot more positive about this if tier 2 was to see a restructuring, or to see somebody head up that project and really kind of just have a vision for it and not figure it out. Obviously that's very reductionist, but to give somebody the reins and try to have a vision for it. I don't know. Try to make it a little bit more healthy.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
don't know.
Or restructure it to be something like just a strict academy league where teams have to field so that they can move up and down, and it is directly tied to the org. So you don't just have people running amok in contenders where, we're both, allied with this team and we're just kind of like intermingling play. Like, it's it's just very bizarre and just kind of like duct taped together. Not in a nefarious way, but just like we know that this is a problem, so like we're gonna try and like wrangle it together the best we can and hope for the best. But again, like you're admitting that there is a problem and we don't know how to fix it.
This is just like we throw in all kinds of weird stuff into contenders, and we keep like I don't even like. I think these changes overall are pretty positive. There's a question to be asked about the necessity of an academy team for anyone now.
Sure, yeah.
There's also the idea how it's hilarious. Like, how many professional organizations are there actually left in contenders that you could loan a player out to without expecting like some like just now like 3 contenders teams were just banned for sharing
VOD
codes, and it's like I don't know, like who do you even loan this out to? It's just like
it reminds me of like it's like giving $10,000 bikes to people who live on like shitty gravel roads. Like there's just like there's potholes everywhere. There's so many issues. Like, great, I'm glad that we've got these players down here that should help, but all your orgs are gone.
At the same time, the exercise of the bike kind of helps the person to like remain their sanity,
it's all like good, but it's like not as good as it should be, kind of deal. Where it's like, and then the system is inherently like just problematic.
We need the bikes, but we also need to fix the potholes, I think is what I'm trying to say. I'm not expecting it to be a perfect racetrack by any means.
No,
but
100%.
Like, I need to make sure that dude's not gonna break his back going over some of these potholes here, and that's just kind of the situation we're in right now. I hope that we have more positive developments here, because this, unfortunately, I don't think that this is enough for a tier 2 scene. And like, I feel so bad for all of our friends in tier 2 who are doing such a great job of support tier 2, you know, making these amazing communities and getting anybody who will be involved to, you know, bring that out, because that's the only reason why, in my opinion, that there is any following there at all, because the Overwatch League and Overwatch team has not done nearly enough. Especially, I would say, recently in NA and EU. I'm less familiar with how all the other regions are doing, I'll be honest, but in NA and EU, it's abysmal.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where I do kind of side with the teams a little bit, as much as it does cost or is at the detriment of the players, where it's just another expenditure that the league doesn't incentivize. Is this the road to incentivizations for teams? I think so, but I don't think a lot of the arguments the community kind of voices about it being like financially viable to be in contenders makes a whole lot of sense right now. I don't know if it's even financially viable to be in the Overwatch League right now. Again, we don't have geolocation, which is like a big source of monetary gain, or at least what the league was kind of built on. So unless that changes, I don't know. I think contenders, again, what I'll say on it is I think somebody needs to head that project up. It needs to be seriously restructured. And I think this is a path to building it the right way.
I think they're going to have to pay out. I think they're going to have to pay orgs to come back.
I think
it's the only way I see it happening.
Could we change pay to like highly incentivized? I don't know. I don't think you're going to, I don't think they're going to pay them.
Incentivize without some sort of dollar value.
Some sort of value,
like bartering other games like involvement or whatever, in which case that gets really crazy.
I'm thinking you limit the fluidity to strict academy teams, and then add a stipend, maybe, I guess, to your point, like you give them a stipend to give to the players so they don't have to directly pay them, so it doesn't come out of their budget but the league's budget.
Does Academy exist at all? Should it?
I think so. I think it does a good thing for everybody. I think having that clear delineation between like Academy and like what we call tier 2 and tier 3, and then like the open scene. I think the open scene should remain open. reduce the community kind of restrictions in terms of those licenses and build like a proper academy league to have these players who are taken care of with proper structure, with proper systems, with coaches, with contracts, all that stuff. You can move them down and move them up, very fluid, but within a system that is structured. I don't know exactly how to put that, but hopefully you get the picture.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, we need to go on, and we're gonna speed run some predictions here.
112, baby.
There are a few important matches this weekend, and so we want to kind of go through them all. But we're gonna go through quick. Make sure I've got my notes here.
Who has hero pools?
We do have this weekend San Francisco versus Philadelphia Fusion, and this is going to determine the number 1 overall seed. So that's a big match. We're going to discuss that in a second. Dynasty. I mean, we talked about last week with Eric, Dynasty and Spitfire. There's still a lot of fighting for that 5th seed.
They're gonna
I
get
guess.
real tired of each other.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of back and forth there. That's going to be important. Let's talk about some of these predictions. Friday, Mayhem, Titans.
Mayhem Vancouver.
Mayhem.
Okay. Fuel versus Glads. Also on Friday.
Glad.
Also Glads. I just, man.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard because this hero pool is like, hey, remember the last thing we were doing? Not anymore.
Oh yeah.
It blows things wide open. But we won't get into it. That's like a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. Saturday at noon, we have Atlanta versus Paris.
Paris.
I agree. And then we have Vancouver versus Dallas.
Dallas.
I'm going Vancouver, baby. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I got the gut check here. I don't know what it is. It's right here.
I'm not mad at it.
My kidneys might be shutting down, or it's
Could
a
be
divine
close.
Revelation.
Could be close.
Great. Boston versus Glads.
Glads.
Shock versus Philly.
Shock. Should be shock.
I have no reason to bet against the Shock, I don't think yet.
Yeah. This will be the game to see if they have any reason to bet against them.
Yep. This also is going to decide how excited I am about the NA teams as they go to Asia, hopefully.
Asia.
On Sunday, the Shock versus Defiant.
Shock.
Then we've got Mayhem versus Valiant.
Mayhem.
Oh, this is so
Mayhem.
hard. Mayhem. Yeah, I need to put more time into like what I think the hero pool will result. But yeah,
I think
have
that preview piece on Friday. If you guys, there might be some picks that switch around. I'll try to get a meta view on it as well. And
it should be Florida though. Like if everything remains constant in terms of power levels, Florida should take that.
Yeah.
And then Vancouver versus Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta. Let's go to Asia.
I feel like we just need to flip a coin for how many times Seoul and London play. Where it's just
London and Seoul, number 1 on Friday.
I don't like either of these teams. I'll say London.
I say Seoul.
Yeah, Seoul. Saturday, NYXL versus NYXL versus Seoul. NYXL.
I'll take Nixel.
Okay, Shanghai versus London.
Shanghai.
And then Seoul versus London.
Yeah, that's not a mistake. That's actually happening.
That's happening. Yeah. I'll stick with London.
I'm gonna say London on the second one. They go 1-1.
God damn it.
Where are you going?
There's no way
it's
double Seoul. There's actually no way.
So you're gonna 50-50 it? But what if it's both London though? You know what I'm saying?
I'm going double Seoul.
Who's
double
more likely?
Soul! Snake Eyes, let's go.
Here's a better question. Which team is more likely to win both games?
Oh, Seoul.
Seoul.
Really?
Oh, I get what you're saying, huh?
Yeah.
Meaning if London wins the first, are they more likely to win the second than if Seoul is? In which case, I would say,
Sure.
yeah. I get what you're saying. I don't disagree with it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's week 28.
That's it. I know. A ton of amazing insight. I know you guys are really happy about the preview games that we got. I apologize.
We also successfully managed to dodge the MVP discussion once again. But MVP. I suppose
we've got a little time on that though, yeah?
We do.
So we have still Monday. When is MVP?
Yeah. That's
voting,
a good question.
It's coming up, but there's about
voting in 27.
August 27.
Yeah, we can talk
we got plenty of time.
There's definitely some steam I have to let off because like the process once again, Jesus Christ.
Well, why don't we tie that into like our end of season like awards, kind of briefly bringing them out there, who we think, why we think, and
Joe is suggesting to go, your stuff sucks. He is the right one. That's
it's a celebration.
I can do it better. In my non-humility.
No.
Nobody knows as good as I.
This is players.
All right. Chat, thanks for hanging out with us. Hope you had a ton of fun. We will talk about MVPs. It's just not the most pressing thing right now, and so we didn't today. Big thank you to everybody, though, who hung out today in chat. Big thank you to the new subs, H. Luch and Grow Roots. Thank you so much for your support of the show. If you want to support, 3 great ways to do it. First, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Become a patron. We've got a dedicated channel in our Discord where we kind of hang out and pose questions to y'all and all that stuff. And we also have game nights and other perks. If you're on Twitch, use your Twitch Prime sub for free at twitch.tv/Kickedtripod. Another great way to support the show. Or if you're like, you've got an extra $5, throw a sub here as well. Why not? And lastly, just listen, watch the show. That's the best way, honestly, to support the show. Listen, watch, tell your friends. We are going for partner right now on Twitch, and in order to do that, we need to have 75 concurrent viewers. So every concurrent viewer during the show helps. We were over that again today, chat. Thank you so much. Woo! Appreciate y'all. I don't know why I'm saying y'all. What is that? It's because I'm getting ready to see Katie's family in Texas, maybe.
Yeehaw!
So big thank you there. As far as shout outs for the week and where people can find you, if you are interested at all, actually, I am going to be on a podcast in about 15 minutes called Next Level. And it is at twitch.tv/nextleveltfc or TSC. I'm posting it there. It'll be hosted, hopefully. I don't think that they're live yet, though, so it's going to be kind of weird. But I will be on there, and it won't be Overwatch or necessarily esports related, more on the other stuff that I do. But if you're interested in that,
nice.
That's all I've got for me. Find me everywhere at Kickedtripod. Joe, shout out to the week. Where can people find you?
All the socials everywhere. I won't spell it out for you. I think you get it by now. After this show, I'm going back, doing myself a favor. A little bit of a mental candy check. That doesn't make sense, but you get it. We're going back and we're talking about Lunatic High and why they are my vote for the Kings of the Rematch. And we'll explore that for this week and GG Recon. So yeah, check that out. And yeah, that's all.
Yiska, what about you?
I wrote a piece today in the vein of the Yiska analogy, the good old. Basically talking about evaluating coaches and giving a little bit of background and how we are in a particular time in history where arguably the resources are ahead of the talent because it so abruptly was injected into the scene. And there was a lot of a demand for it. And I wrap it into an analogy of Seesaw. And if you don't know how that at all works, you got to read the article. At GG.
How does a seesaw work?
How does a seesaw work, chat? Nobody knows.
I mean,
Nobody knows. Miracles, baby.
Nobody
Miracles.
yeah, I don't know. Like, how do you
Gravity's
go up?
a myth.
Usually when I sit on a seesaw, I never go up.
I'm always
Why is
down.
that?
I'm always
true.
the down part of the seesaw.
Yeah.
With me,
Weird.
there are no seesaws, just catapults. Thanks so much for hanging out, chat. Hope you had a great one. We'll see you on Friday for Spike Drop. Otherwise, next Monday for the next Tactical Crouch. Bye.